DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jazz tickets coming up, bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. We'll give them away to see the game Saturday with the Hornets. They're coming back home after they play Oklahoma City on Wednesday. David Locke's least favorite NBA road trip. Get to hear him complain about that on Friday.
I like that place.
He got a shot in at him at last week.
I like the convenience of the airport and all the smaller places and get in and out. I've been there multiple times for work.
I was there one time. It was for 6 hours at the end of a trip and just straight into the hotel, go to sleep, get up, and go to the airport. Got no experience there. Yeah. DJ PK, and we're joined now by Austin Meek, Michigan writer for The Athletic. Austin, good morning.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
We are doing well this morning. How is the University of Michigan football fan doing with all the changes and Kyle Whittingham showing up and hiring a staff? How's it going?
I think Michigan fans are feeling a lot better today than they were feeling a couple weeks ago, I can tell you that. This has been a traumatic month, I think, for a lot of Michigan fans, what the program has been through. Initially, it was a lot of shock and embarrassment as this scandal unfolded with Sharon Moore. Michigan fans were looking for somebody to restore some integrity, I think, to the program. Michigan fans were looking for a reason to be proud of their program again. I think a lot of them feel like Kyle Whittingham is the right person to restore that sense of pride in the program. So I think a lot of Michigan fans are really optimistic about where things are going with the new coach.
Yeah, I'm an old newspaper guy. I have 23 years of daily experience, and so I still write a piece here for one of the local websites. And I wrote that they got Mr. Clean because, he has avoided a lot of distractions, and he's a very simple guy in his family life and so forth, and doesn't have any really big-time things, no vices, essentially, unless he's fooling the rest of us. But with all that in mind, there's been a ton of change in this program since Christmas, essentially, and we're not that far removed. Could I argue that the most important person that he got to, in this case, stay in the program is Bryce Underwood?
Well, certainly Michigan's got to build around the quarterback, and that was the direction of things a year ago when Michigan made a big play and offered a big deal to Bryce Underwood to get him to decommit from LSU and come play for his hometown school. I think it's an interesting question in terms of what's best for Michigan next season and long term, because the reality is Bryce Underwood was a below average starting quarterback in the Big Ten this year. Now, he was an 18-year-old freshman who was thrown into the starting job probably before he was ready and still started every game, had some really nice moments where you saw his potential, also had some tough games, including his last game in the Citrus Bowl when he threw 3 interceptions. So would Michigan be better off next year with Bryce Underwood as a second-year starter or a guy out of the transfer portal? I think that's an interesting question that people could debate forever, but getting Bryce Underwood back does guarantee that Michigan has a guy they can build around. And I think Michigan put in the time and the development and the growing pains with Bryce Underwood this year as a freshman. So to me, it only makes sense to see that through and hope that with a new offensive coordinator and maybe an offense that's a little more suited to his strengths, that Bryce Underwood can make a big leap next year.
Rich Rodriguez was in Michigan 3 years. He was an outsider coming in, and there was a whole thought that he didn't negotiate the politics well, and he's got and maybe the politics couldn't be negotiated for an outsider, and he's got a very different personality than Kyle, so maybe that would be a major piece of the puzzle. But how hard is it for an outsider to come in to Michigan?
Well, it is hard. I mean, and I'm speaking as an outsider who came into Michigan 7 years ago, having never set foot in Ann Arbor before, and had to learn this place for myself. It is hard. There is certainly a mystique around being a Michigan man that you pick up on the moment you get here. And that mystique was very strong for the last decade, starting when Jim Harbaugh came back here. But I also think if there is a time that somebody from the outside could come in here and be successful, it's right now, because the whole Jim Harbaugh era clearly had run its course. Promoting Sharon Moore was a way for Michigan to try to continue what Jim Harbaugh started, to be Jim Harbaugh's program basically without Jim Harbaugh, and we saw how that ended, right? It ended in disaster. It ended with Michigan needing somebody to come in and clean up the mess. And in that situation, I think you had to go outside. And so somebody like Kyle Whittingham, even though he's not from Michigan, he spent his whole career in Utah essentially, but I think his personality, just from what I've seen of it and his philosophy, I think it fits Michigan much better than Rich Rodriguez. With Rich Rod, it was not only that he was an outsider, but his whole philosophy was just so radically different from what Michigan had done in the past that I think it was just doomed. I don't think it's that way with Kyle Whittingham. It is going to be a transition for him, and I don't think it's a sure thing that it's going to work. But I do think that there's enough common ground with Kyle Whittingham in Michigan that at least he has a chance to succeed here.
My wife's family is from the Detroit area. My mother-in-law grew up there and all that. Still has plenty of relatives there. And several years ago, we were back there, and I told her I wanted to go through the Hitsville, the Motown thing there. And we got there, and the last tour started at 4 o'clock, and we got there about 4:10. And I went in, and I told the guy, I said, man, I'm from Utah, which I'm not from Utah, but I work here now. And so, we know the stereotypes of Utah. And I told the guy, I said, outside of Detroit, there's no bigger place that worships Motown than Salt Lake City. And she kind of looked at me and think, okay, you're putting me on here. But it was, I warmed up enough to her that she took me down some hallway and got my wife and I in the tour as it was ongoing, right? Which I really wanted to do. And the point I'm making is, when I said I'm from Utah, I might as well said I was from Pluto, and the way they think about Utah. They just don't know too many people from Utah. So not only is Whittingham and most of his staff going to be outsiders and not Michigan people, they're going to be from Utah. Now, does that raise an eyebrow, or is it among the fan base thinking, hey, this man has had a lot of success at Utah, so imagine what he can do with what's available at Michigan? Which one do you think it is?
I think it's a mix of both. I think right now the fan base is more on the side of what you just said, that look at this guy's track record. He's had success basically every year of his career, at Utah. Been one of the most consistent programs in college football over the last 2 decades. At a program that doesn't have the resources that Michigan has. So you bring that guy in here with Michigan's budget and NIL infrastructure. I think a lot of fans feel like that's a recipe for success. I think fans are excited about the staff. I think there's a little bit of ambivalence about some of the coaches that were let go, because the staff under Jim Harbaugh, he really made an emphasis on bringing some Michigan guys into the staff, guys who played at Michigan, coached at Michigan in the past. A lot of that's gone now. This is very much a kind of wholesale, a wholesale changeover from a very heavy Michigan influence to a very heavy Utah influence. I think some fans are, maybe a little bit in wait and see mode to see how that's going to play out. But I think on the whole, there's a sense that Kyle Whittingham has put together a really good staff and brought the best of the coaches that he worked with at Utah now to be part of his staff here at Michigan.
Michigan's coming off a 9-3, with the bowl loss, 9-4 season. That's pretty good. Obviously, it's not up to top shelf Michigan standards, but they probably have some pretty good players on the roster, but then I looked at the schedule, like they feasted on the bottom of the Big Ten. Not even the middle of the Big Ten. They struggled with Nebraska, and they lost to USC, but they feasted on the bottom of the Big Ten. The schedule looks a little tougher next year. Ohio State obviously is on the schedule, but so's Indiana, so's Oregon, and a non-conference game with Oklahoma. They lost in Norman this year. They'll have them at home coming up for Kyle here. What are the expectations are? How good is the talent on the roster? Because there's a long string of beating a bad Purdue team, beating a bad Maryland team, beating a bad Michigan State team, beating a bad Wisconsin team. How much do they really have on the roster?
At no point this year did I think Michigan looked like a playoff team, even though technically Michigan was alive for a playoff spot if they had beaten Ohio State. You're absolutely right that the 9-4 record was built on beating a lot of bad teams in the Big Ten. Wisconsin, Purdue, Michigan State, none of those teams had a Big Ten win when Michigan played them. So I think in some ways the record is a little bit empty when you look at who Michigan actually beat this year and how Michigan played against the best teams on the schedule. I do think there's talent on this roster. It wouldn't surprise me if Michigan is a playoff team next year, only because, I mean, we've talked about Bryce Underwood, but not just him. There are some talented young players on this team that it looks like Michigan is going to be in position to retain. The one thing that Sharon Moore did well, he recruited well the last couple of years. Michigan's 2025 recruiting class was very good. The 2026 class, which appears to be more or less intact, was very good. Headlined by Savion Hyder, top 10 prospect and number 1 running back in the class, who's going to stay and play for Tony Alford. Carter Meadows, a 5-star edge rusher in that 26 class as well. So there's talent on this team. A lot of it's young talent. I think what's going to determine whether Michigan is a playoff team next year will be, can they go in the portal and get some experienced guys to fill some gaps? Because a lot of their best players are young players. But there is talent in this program, and I think it's set up over the next 2 to 3 years for Kyle Whittingham to have success here.
I'm wondering also, too, the lack of the Michigan connection that the majority of the coaches will have. Excuse me. How much of that is a big deal in terms of recruiting with the idea that Michigan basically recruits nationally anyway?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know how much that stuff matters in this era of college football. You know, if this was 5-10 years ago, I think that would be a big talking point. But in this era, so much of it is about, do you have the infrastructure with NIL and revenue sharing and your personnel department to identify the right players? And if Michigan has that, I have high confidence that Kyle Whittingham is going to be able to coach the team. I think there's not many guys in college football you feel better about, just from a pure coaching standpoint. So it's really just about, does his personnel department and the NIL collective and all the people who have to work together to build the roster, does he have all that in place to get him the right players? And if he does, I think he'll be successful. And so much of it is just about having the money and figuring out who you want to spend it on. The connections, the Michigan ties, like that, maybe that has a little bit of influence, but in this day and age, I don't think it really matters that much. Your coach and your staff can come from anywhere. As long as you've got the right personnel people in place and the right infrastructure with NIL, you can build a really good roster.
How restricted is the football staff in bringing in recruits and bringing in transfers, given the fact that Michigan is a very good academic school? Does football get a lot of room to operate? I think we all know what I mean when I say that. Do they get a lot of room to operate, or is it maybe a little more restrictive than people on this side of the country would be aware of?
Michigan had a period of time early on with the transfer portal where they just were not very active in the portal at all. The first couple of years of it, Michigan didn't take a lot of transfers. That part of that was just philosophically of how Jim Harbaugh wanted to build the team, and part of it was Michigan had to figure out which transfers to go after, which ones they could get in. I think one thing that Michigan learned the hard way early on is that the transfers you want at Michigan are going to be either grad transfers or guys who are pretty early in their careers. The transfers that are tough for Michigan are the guys who have, 2-3 years into their undergrad, but they haven't graduated, because a lot of their credits aren't going to transfer to Michigan, and guys don't want to come in and lose half their credits, have to start over on their undergrad degree. So you got to be a little bit selective at Michigan in terms of the transfers you go after. Not every guy in the portal is going to be a fit for Michigan, but I do think they've gotten to the point now where they can tell, okay, this guy's going to work for us, this guy isn't. I think they've got it down to the point that they can use the portal effectively and bring in guys who are going to be able to get eligible and enroll and ultimately help the team.
Obviously, with his age, he's not a long-term solution, being 66. Is there any apprehension of hiring a coach at this age?
I think there is a bit. And I think that's one of the things that maybe people aren't thinking about it right now. Right away, right? It's the honeymoon period. Everybody's excited. I think that's the overwhelming feeling here is excitement about Kyle Whittingham. But then, as time goes on, I think that's one of the things that is going to really define how we think about this era for Kyle Whittingham. Is he going to be here long enough to really put his stamp on the program, and what is that transition going to be like? Because it's going to be a question. I mean, my understanding is it's been a question at Utah for a while, right? Yeah. About when is he going to – how much longer does he want to coach? What's the transition going to look like? Who's going to replace him? If those questions were being asked at Utah over a period of several years, then I think it's a little naive to think that Kyle Whittingham's just going to coach 5 years at Michigan and it's not going to come up. I think it's going to come up, and a lot of it's going to depend on, is he successful right away? If he comes out and makes the playoff in year one, I think everybody's going to be happy to let it ride. But if it's not everything that Michigan hopes it can be, then is there going to be a question a few years in of, okay, well, what's the transition going to look like here? I think it's a legitimate question that's going to come up sooner or later, and we'll just have to see how soon that becomes an issue here.
How does the top of the Big Ten stack up? Where does Michigan fit? And you've said it a couple times now. It sounds like 10-2 in a playoff bid, everyone's going to declare victory in 2026.
Yeah, if Kyle Whittingham gets Michigan in the college football playoff next year, I think everybody's going to feel good about how all of this played out. Even if it was traumatic to get to this point, if it ends up with Kyle Whittingham as the coach of Michigan and Michigan in the playoff, I think fans will feel like, hey, we came out of this better than we were going in. One of the challenges for Michigan is that they have fallen out of that top tier in the Big Ten now. I mean, I think they're in the second tier of Big Ten teams, but I'm not sure I'd even put Michigan at the top of that tier. Michigan played USC this year and got blown out at the Coliseum, and that was a decent USC team, but not a great USC team. Michigan got beaten pretty soundly by Illinois last year. So clearly Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, those teams are on a different level from Michigan. And Michigan's going to play those teams next year, as you mentioned. And if that gap is still as wide as it was this year, then it's going to be tough for Kyle Whittingham to get Michigan in the playoff next year, just because the schedule is so much tougher. But I think Michigan's, they're knocking on the door. They're in that second tier of the Big Ten, but the top of the Big Ten is really strong, and it's not going to be easy for Michigan to make that step up into that top group.
What's the status of the university president and athletic director, the people who signed off on hiring him?
Well, Michigan's going to have a new university president. The president they have now is an interim president who's been there for several months. The new president is, as I understand it, going to be announced early this year. And there is an ongoing investigation of the athletic department culture and practices that came out of everything that happened with Sharon Moore. The investigation started as a third-party investigation of Sharon Moore's relationship with a female staff member. And then when it came out that he was, in fact, engaged in that relationship, the investigation then expanded to look at the whole athletic department, which has had, beyond this situation, a bunch of other scandals, including the sign stealing thing with Connor Stallions, 2 different NCAA investigations, and that's just in football. They've had issues in other programs too. So that's raised some questions about the future of Ward Manuel, the athletic director here. He's been at Michigan for a decade. He played at Michigan. Michigan's programs have generally been successful during Ward Manuel's tenure, but they've had a lot of off-the-field issues. So I don't honestly know where that's going to go. There's always stuff bubbling up at Michigan. There's always been talk for as long as I've been here of, what's Ward Manuel's future, and he always seems to come out of that still in the chair. There's some thought that maybe this time it'll be different, but I don't know. I think that's going to be a question. Maybe one reason you mentioned Kyle Whittingham's age. If Kyle Whittingham was in his 30s and wanting to coach 2 decades at Michigan, I think the instability with the athletic director and the administration would probably be a concern. Maybe not quite as much for a coach in Kyle Whittingham's position.
The most scathing summary I heard of this was that Michigan likes to pretend it's all that and that they're different and they're high and they're mighty. But look at all the scandals in Michigan in the last 5 years. They are basically the SEC no matter what they say. Man, I would think that kind of thing lands pretty poorly in Ann Arbor, bodes pretty well for a complete outsider coming in, because my perception from a long way away is that Michigan people would hate hearing that, and yet there isn't a lot they can say right now when they do hear that.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody can deny that over the last 5 years, Michigan has been one of the most dysfunctional football programs in the country in terms of the off-the-field stuff. Biff Poggi, the interim coach at Michigan, said as much before the Citrus Bowl that he called it a malfunctioning organization. Now, somehow Michigan managed to win a national championship amid all of that, which is still kind of mind-blowing to me. But just the sheer number of off-field scandals that have happened at Michigan over the last 5 years has got to rank up there with any program in college football, maybe at the top. And that is, I think, a blow to the self-image of Michigan as the leaders and the best, the program that sets the standard in college football. I mean, you hear a lot of that stuff around here. I do think that Michigan fans care about that. I think, they do care about how the program is perceived. And I think that's part of why they're excited about Kyle Whittingham, is because, as we said earlier, he does bring that reputation as a guy who, runs the program with integrity, runs a clean program, a tough program, a program that fans can identify with. They're really ready for that after all of the scandals that have happened over the last few years.
Well, has it finally happened, Austin? Has Kyle Whittingham been contacted by Tom Brady?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I know Tom's got some stuff going on right now. Tom's got another coaching search he's got to worry about in Vegas. So I don't know if they've had time to talk. I mean, Tom, he stayed connected to the program. He was a big part of Bryce Underwood signing with Michigan. So I'm going to assume that if that conversation hasn't happened yet, that it will happen in the near future. But I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question.
Tom Brady's got an owner to get under control. There's one constant in a couple decades of chaos, and it's a guy with a pretty special. Yeah, right. There's one constant. It's a guy with a bowl haircut, and I think he's causing some problems. Managing up is a problem for everyone, including, it turns out, Tom Brady. So there's that. Austin, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for filling us in on Michigan football.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Austin Meek, Michigan writer for The Athletic. Not on the top tier. Yeah, that's fair analysis. Those other teams with back-to-back playoff appearances. Iowa State with the title. Indiana's in the semifinal still playing. Oregon, another Big Ten team.
Yeah, but I don't think you look at Michigan on a yearly basis, though. You look at
They're still Michigan. They can get back.
The 30,000
Yeah.
Perspective. And there's few programs that are like Michigan.
Fact.
Yeah.
Well, the expectation will be to get back sooner, not later.
In 2026?
Yeah. Yep.
And then in 2027. It's what Kyle said. You come here, you're expected to compete for that national title every single year.
DJ and PK, when we come back, we'll give away tickets to see the Jazz and the Hornets Saturday at the Delta Center. Everything you missed in this show coming up next. Stay with us.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Don't touch that button.
Check this out. Eric Weddle, kind enough to join us.
We need to get back to players that want to be part of our university, that will appreciate what the university can give them. The culture, the buy-in, what Coach Morgan and those guys are going to be emphasizing day in and day out of being great men on and off the field, right? Future leaders, future husbands and fathers. Like, those programs are what I want my son to be a part of. It's not the guys that are money hungry. We're not going to beg people to stay at our university. We're not going to overpay guys because they got other universities that are offering more money. Then if that's the case and you don't appreciate what this school can give you, then good luck, because we're going to be fine. The University of Utah is an amazing school with amazing support, and those who want to be a part of it, let's ride.
It's Hans and Scotty, weekdays from noon to 3, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Slacker radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit their website at trajanwealth.com.
I've done both of those.
That'll work for you.
Oh, I'm rolling in it.
Nice. It's the Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We're giving away tickets every hour on the half hour. Time to give away the 9:30 tickets right now. Caller 12-801-575-ZONE. Caller 12-801-575-ZONE. Win a pair of tickets to watch the Utah Jazz and the Charlotte Hornets Saturday at the Delta Center. Go get them. Jazz on the road and at home have been two different teams, and that is a good thing given how they played on the road last night, PK. Talked about it earlier in the show, but for the late arrivals, Portland's got a losing record. Portland actually has a losing record at home, and yet the Jazz were only competitive for 8 or 9 minutes, and then Portland blew them out.
They done did.
That was brutal. Layups, dunks, alley-oops, wide-open threes, transition buckets. There were problems all over the place.
Yeah, I just hate the easy dunks. I mean, push somebody. Do something. Don't be dirty. But don't push them in the air. That's not what I'm saying. But get some form of physicality. These bad habits, man.
And it's not just the bigs at the rim. It's the people defending the ball out on the perimeter. It's hard to throw an alley-oop when your back is to the basket because you're protecting the ball. It's because you got a ton of space and you're wide open. That makes it a lot easier to throw an alley-oop. Jazz lose again on the road. Jazz now 4-12 on the road. Jazz are 0-3 on this trip, and they're going to play Oklahoma City tomorrow night to wrap up the 4-game trip. Oklahoma City unexpectedly got drilled, absolutely blown out by the Hornets, 124-97. So they are now 6-6 in their last 12 games after a great start. The Thunder have been struggling. Now,
Who's seen that coming?
3 of those losses were the Spurs, but the Hornets.
You just can't have that.
Yeah, right. Win 13 for the Hornets. That's good for the Jazz, who are on 12 wins. Win 13 also for the Clippers by 1 point. Thanks to Steve Kerr's technical foul. If I could just pick out 1 point. Thanks for getting tossed out there in the fourth quarter, Steve.
Well, I think that the Clippers are not going to be a threat unless they just really have injuries. They don't have their pick. OKC has it, I believe. And so with that in mind, they have zero incentive to lose and paying these guys a boatload. I believe Charlotte has a better roster when healthy, but it seems like they're just constantly in and out of the lineup. It looks like they made a good pick with Knippel here. He's been playing well for a first-year dude who only played 1 year of college ball. That's encouraging. So as I look at what the Jazz have as far as competition, I mean, there's no question Sacramento is awful. It's only like a matter of time, it seems, before Christie is shown the door. Not that he's anywhere close to the problem.
But that's just how they handle things. They lose for a while, they change the coach.
Everybody does that. New Orleans, I think, is legit. And
Legit bad?
Yeah.
They're both sitting on 8 wins right now, while the Jazz are on 12.
And then Washington and Indiana are legit. Indiana, with Halliburton, they've just caved in. And Washington has been bad since Dick Motta was there, it seems.
Those 4 teams haven't gotten to double digits in wins yet.
And that's no offense to Jeff Rulon.
Okay, thank you. That was for me, obviously. The Nets are on 11. What do you think about the Nets? Jazz are at 12.
I think they're right there.
Yeah. They are currently the teams with the 5th and 6th worst records. Jazz
I'm
have the
looking
6th
at
worst record.
guarantees.
But 6th worst record, the Jazz should hold on to their draft pick.
Should being the operative word there.
Right.
I'm foolish here.
Uh-oh.
I just think luck has to bounce their way at some point.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah. There's so
the law
much
of
doom and
numbers.
gloom, and they never move up. And at some point, they got to move up.
Well, not only do they never move up, they usually move down.
Right.
They don't even stay where the odds would correlate, I guess you would say. So I'm thinking this year.
This is the year.
Yeah. The universe has to step in.
You're going full Pablo Mastroianni. This must be a Thunderbird High thing.
And say, it is meant for you to have Devonsa. The kid is comfortable out here. He's been out here for over a year.
Seems to love it.
Right. He seems he has the personality that would work here. He knows the Ainges, I'm sure. He knows Hardy.
Yeah.
He obviously knows Ryan Smith. So he wouldn't even have to leave home, literally. And isn't his sister moved out here? The parents have moved out here. And the only thing is that you can move higher up the mountain.
All right. It's the NBA. Deer Valley is calling.
Yeah, and I don't know. They may not be into that at all.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Whatever they've got,
Well, some people don't want to be bothered driving down the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, they may be humble in their circumstances. Who knows? But it just seems like that's just got to happen. How does Ewing get to New York?
Well,
How
now
does
you're going way
LeBron
back.
get to Cleveland?
Yeah. The universe.
Come on. He's our guy.
Yeah. Make it happen.
Kevin Young brought him here.
Right. And he's from Massachusetts, and Boston isn't going to have eye pick, so.
No, he hasn't lived back there in a long time. Bouncing around with these other schools and stuff.
Right.
And he plays all over the
this
world.
and for people who haven't followed it, this isn't just 1 year in Utah with BYU. It's 2. He was in St. George last year. Hurricane.
Yeah, and he came up a number of times. Mm-hmm. And so he's probably played Sand Hollow. What?
It's just funny.
Well, I think the Boston Globe or somebody sent somebody out, and they wrote a story with the dad and all, and he's talking about, we've stood in line at the Texas Roadhouse, which is right there on Telegraph, which would be close to where they are, and he's just talking about the places. It's not his hometown, but he's familiar with it, and it's just. I mean, I want it to happen, obviously, and
you are not alone, PK. There's a long list of people who want it to happen.
If not him, then it's got to be Carlos's son.
Again, a tie.
Yeah,
He's not local. Yeah. But when you look as people borrow trouble from the future and worry about, well, who's going to resign, 7 years down the road, that's a long way away to worry about. But literally, if they drafted Carlos's son, the kid would actually have his dad like, don't make the mistake I made. You know, Carlos like, well, in retrospect, I wish I hadn't left. At the time, okay, I got this, I got that, and this is why I did it. But then when it played out, he's like,
Carlos has signed off on the Jazz.
Oh, yeah,
living here.
Yes, he's been around a lot. He's done interviews, talked about then, talked about
Kevin Durant
now.
says earlier in the season they've got a good developmental program.
Every young player should be listening to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he was asked about Ace Bailey,
Yeah.
I believe.
And you know DeBonce has heard about it. So there's another guy who'd be more comfortable here than him long term.
It's
2 of the 3 makes sense.
Hi-Ho Silver, you've got to get it done.
Well, they're sitting on the 6th worst
Freeze
record
the
now.
envelope. I don't care what you got to do.
Freeze the envelope.
Rig it as much as you want.
Yeah, that's a 1980s Patrick Ewing reference.
Because
right
even if that happens, it's not like in the 26-27 season they'd be battling for a top 4.
No, the next step would be to get into the top 10, top 8.
Right. I mean, you got to get in there.
Yeah.
And DeBonce would still be a kid and learn the game at the pro level, the highest level, obviously. So it would take. It's not like the rebuild would be all of a sudden the fruits of the rebuild would be delivered next season. It's probably. I asked Locke about when do you think they'll be playing on Christmas Day because that's usually a sign of respect, unless you're New York or the Lakers or somebody. And he said 29. Well, that's the 29-30 season because Christmas Day obviously would be in 29. So that's 3 years away from next year.
Well, when you put it like that.
But it would go a long way if you got a talent like that.
Spurs played on Christmas Day, didn't they? I've already forgotten. I'm pretty sure they did.
Well, they got a good team.
They played okay.
They got a good team,
and they
but
got
also
a
once you put
player.
once you put a premier player on it, the team doesn't have to quite be there as long as the arrow is up and the player is electric.
It was them and the Thunder, I thought, on Christmas Day.
Yeah, they hate each other now, man. Oh,
SGA and Wemby.
that rivalry, man, it's going back and forth because we beat them 2 or 3 times. You said, oh. And it certainly looks like San Antonio is going to be a playoff team this year.
The Mavericks played on Christmas Day, and that's purely Cooper Flag. Want to see him.
Right.
Get the number 1 pick, and there you go.
Yeah.
We also talked football this morning. Okay, PK, there's challenges. I liked what Kalani Sitake said. I didn't say this earlier, so this is brand new for you, the 9 o'clock
What did he
listener.
say?
He was
Be
asked
humble
about.
and hungry?
Well, he certainly said that a lot. And he's going to continue to say it because it's working. No, but he was asked about Jay Drew leaving the defense, and at one point in the answer he goes,
Jay Drew leading the defense.
Not Jay Drew, sorry. You gave me a Jay Drew story.
Wow, Jay Drew.
Jay Drew. Bad news, Cougar fans.
Big
Hey,
upgrade.
it's good news.
No, it's bad news. Jay's an offensive mind. He's not a defensive mind. He's on the wrong side of the ball.
How do you know he's an offensive
Jay's
mind?
a quarterback whisperer. I've talked to him at high school.
Jay Schrader leading the
Jay
defense.
Schrader. Famous Jays. Let's go. Jay Schrader. Nice.
That's a nice pull.
And he coaches St. George?
He did. He was coaching and calling games down there or something like that, too.
Yeah, but fairly local.
Fairly local. The Raiders are in Vegas now. Anyway, what was the point? Oh, no, it was with Jay Hill leaving to go to Michigan, and it asked about the defense. And it's as fired up as Kalani really gets in these press conferences. He goes, I know the defense, too. Like, did you forget? So I like that, a little bit of pushback. There are challenges for Utah and BYU. I don't like all the hand-wringing, the negativity, and the sky is falling stuff. They're challenges. There's no doubt about it. And people may not be willing to give Morgan any grace at all, any time at all. Some people probably will. Well, we'll see how that goes. Everybody wants what they want when they want it. Yeah, Kyle was 16 and 13 in his first 29 games, and then he got stuff figured out in year 3, and away they went. Phenomenal run. So I know Morgan's got challenges. I know Kalani's got challenges, but I don't like the sky is falling thing. It's just not. It's not that bad.
Well, I don't think a sky would be falling from a team that won 11 and 12 games.
Yeah. They got too many people back. For all the people they've lost, they got too many people back.
It seems like we're overlooking the fact that Utah had a really good team.
Season. Yeah, really good team, really good season.
Yeah,
11-2. As Morgan said at the bowl, you may have even been standing right there out of camera. He's like, hey, we've won 10 games and we're trying to win 11 for just the fourth time in school history.
Right.
Now, in the early days, they didn't play enough games. I mean, it's obviously changed. They've gone from 10 to 11 to 12 game schedules, and you got conference title games and bowl games and multiple playoff games for some teams. So they got to play 13 this year, and there haven't been a lot of years where they've gotten to do that. But there have been enough. It still
and
still
one
stands
of the
up.
losses was by 3.
Yeah.
Come on.
DJ and PK, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it is time for your feedback. What do you have to say about today's show?
Nothing.
There are people on Brendan Sorsby getting $5 million to go to Texas Tech, leave Cincinnati, jump inside the conference. How much, if any, is this stuff hurting your fandom of college football? Lance, we're not watching traditional college football anymore. It's another professional league with your favorite college logo on the helmet. Family and loyalty are just a distant memory. It's not completely wrong.
Yeah, it's exaggerated, but the point is made. At the same time, ratings appear to be through the freaking roof.
People are still watching.
The granddaddy, 24 million.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Jeez.
College football is not what it used to be, Brian says. No tradition or real loyalty. Players are not developing the way they used to. Coaches are skipping out, too. Mega millions playing in college plus a free education. It's got out of hand. NIL was intended to let athletes make a little and market themselves. Then you get boosters involved and corporations. It's a joke. Can't blame the players. Well, like anyone, if you get more money and a job or opportunity, people take it. Sad part in all of this is one's handing out the money, don't give a crap about the kids in the big picture.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that probably varies person to person.
Yeah. But, yeah, some of them are making huge money. And if it's a joke, then that would finally be the time that it's accurate to say they're laughing all the way to the bank.
Fact.
I would be laughing. I'd
the
be
cliche
skipping.
finally comes
I'd be
true.
doing cartwheels.
Cartwheels, PK, cartwheels and somersaults all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Utah will officially introduce Morgan Scalley. Press conference, 2 o'clock today. How tough of a job will it be? David says he'll do great, but he might need a year or two.
I think you have to allow for an opportunity to grow into the job.
Steven, he's going to be awesome. Now players can stay loyal. That's the question.
Some will, but some won't. I mean, there's no other way around it.
But others won't, and they will come to you because of that.
Yeah, but are they good enough?
That is always the question.
I mean, for all of Broncos, I want the hard-working, walk-on overachiever. That's great. And
But you need some
those
real
guys.
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Utes, leading receiver, leading running back, starting quarterback, transfer portal, transfer portal, transfer portal. So those 3 guys were good enough.
Yeah, and that was somewhat circumstantial with their coaches leaving. I don't know that you can count on that.
They followed their coaches. It's circumstantial because they followed their coaches here.
Right.
Right. But that's part of the deal now.
But I don't think you can build that.
I think
that is situational. That is not foundational.
I agree with that. But they're in that situation again this year, bringing in a bunch of new coaches, and will those coaches bring players with them?
Well, yeah, those guys, it seemed like that was like on the next day.
Nick says, it's not easy being the guy to follow the guy. I think Scalley would be great. He learned the standard from the guy that raised the bar.
Well, everyone has mentors. And obviously for Morgan, he's the one guy, there's only one guy on the planet who can say, I'm the coach at Utah, and I learned from the last 4 guys who each had a significant imprint on building Utah. McBride's the godfather. He laid the foundation. Urban, the one-night stand that got him to the top. And Kyle, 2 decades, and he's got all of them.
You said last 4. I was waiting for the 4th one. It was 3.
Him being himself.
Oh, him being the 4th. Okay.
But
he's the 4th, and you can connect the dots. Whereas we were talking earlier today with Austin Meek, the Michigan writer for The Athletic, like Rich Rod didn't have any connection to Brady Hoke, and Brady Hoke didn't have any connection to Harbaugh. They didn't have the same
Didn't Hoke have some Michigan connection?
But Hoke had been an assistant coach there under a previous administration, and then they brought him back. Okay. And there were boosters who liked him, and so they brought him back, and he did 4 years. The first one was good, and then they tailed off.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Right. Well, the good thing about Kyle in that he wasn't chasing something better.
It fell into his path.
Yeah, the other guys were. What they perceived as something better. Mm-hmm. And when, looking back, does Rich Rod really think it's better?
All right, we're all done. Jake and Ben are coming up next. They'll be giving away Jazz tickets at 10:30 and 11:30. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday right here on The Zone.